Hi guys, welcome back to NASA's Thread. Today on the channel, we'll be learning how to make this trendy BuBu gown with a V-neck shape design. So I have my fabric for this. I have 3 yards of this. I also have this crepe fabric that I've gone ahead to cut out for this and my materials. So the first thing I did was to fold my fabric, my black crepe, into two. I have 6 inches by the time I folded that, and the length of this was 21 inches. Okay, so you can decide to use a shorter length and a longer width depending on what you want. Okay, so to get the neckline for this, I went ahead to mark 3 inches for my neck width. I'm using 3 inches for the neck width of this, and then for the neck depth, I'm going to use 4.5 inches. So depending on what you want, you can decide for it to be shorter or longer. Okay, but I advise for it not to be longer, except you want some parts of your cleavages to be showing. So I'm going to connect this point together in a square. So I'm just ensuring that I have the same thing I have at the top part. That's 3 inches on the top part too, and I'm connecting this together. And after doing that, I'm just going to zoom in so you have a better view of what I have. All right, I'll go ahead and cut out this part right now so we can continue with this process. You want to ensure you're doing this very precise, okay, so that you don't make any mistakes. So this is what we have. By the time we open it up, it looks like a square, but that's not exactly what we need. Okay, so we're going to go ahead to work on this more. So I'll flip this over to the back so that we can do our measurements so that it is not on the front part of this. Okay, now I'll be using the shiny part of this crepe fabric for the front, and then the other parts, this part, I'll be using it for the back. So I went ahead to choose one part, and I'm going to extend the line I have there by 4.5 inches. Now on this end, I will advise you make yours to be at least 3.5 to 3 inches. Okay, let it not be up to this point so that you don't have some part of your bust showing. All right, because for me, after doing that, I noticed I had some part of my bust showing. Okay, so you can decide to make this your length to be shorter than mine. Okay, I advise to make it shorter than mine, except you want some part of your bust showing. Okay, like I did for me. So I went ahead to mark that line down so that I have accurately why I'm doing this, and I'm using my curve rule to connect these points from the other end to this other end together. You can as well use your free hand depending on how curvy you want this end to be. Okay, so I'm using a curve rule so that I have this as perfect as I want, and I'll go ahead to cut this out. You can use whatever fabric. You can decide to use a crepe for the main part of the BuBu and decide to use your Ankara fabric to do the design on the neckline. Okay, whatever works for you and whatever fabric you have available. Okay, but I would advise not to use a velvet because it was actually quite difficult working with one when I did one earlier. It was quite difficult working with it, but I advise you use something that is softer and easy to work with. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 4 so that I can cut the gown now. All right, so it means I'll be cutting the back and front together. Okay, I'm going to rule a line at this end, which is going to serve as my starting line, my shoulder line. So if you want yours to be longer in length, you just have to fold this by the length of the material instead of the width. Okay, so you have more length as against the width. So I'm going ahead to mark the same neck width I have on my design. That's for my black material. I'm using the same neck width I have, and then I'll go ahead and mark the length I want for my sleeve. Now you can decide to make yours shorter or decide to make it longer. I went ahead to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 7.5. And from that point, I'll determine how long I want this to be. Okay. Another way to get your sleeve measurement is to place your tape from the mid part of your back, that's your spine, to whatever length you want your sleeve to end. So I went ahead to measure mine and then took the measurement I wanted. Okay, so I wanted mine to be 19 at the end of the day by the time I hemmed the edge, so I went ahead to mark 20. So remember to add your allowance no matter the length of the sleeve you want. You don't want your sleeve to be shortened. And after doing that, I went ahead to come down by 1.5 inch. Okay, this will be for my shoulder slant, and I'm going to use my rule to connect this to the point where I marked my neck width. All right. Then from the part of my shoulder slant, I'll be marking the opening of my sleeve. That's the arm opening. So you can decide to use from about 8 inches to 12 inches for your arm width, depending on how wide you want it or how small you want it. So I'll go ahead and make my connection. I actually use 10 for mine, so that it is not too small and it is not too big for me, because I'm not on the big side. And then I went ahead to mark my bust point, placing it at the point where I have my shoulder line meeting my neck width. So I mark that. From there, I'll take my bust measurement as a bust circumference, sorry. So my round bust is 33. Divided up by 4, I have 8.5, and I'm going to add 4 inches extra to this. This is because it is a BuBu dress. It is meant to be free. It is not meant to be fitted. But if you want yours to not be so free, you can decide to use 2 to 3 inches as your allowance, okay? But because the BuBu dress, it needs to be free, okay? So I'm going ahead to mark out the full length of the dress that I need. Like I said, you can decide for yours to be longer or shorter. Everything depends on what you want, okay, and how you want to style this dress. So I went ahead to mark the length I wanted for this. So I wanted mine to be 41 inches. So I went ahead to mark 42 instead. So 1 inch extra will be for the hemming allowance. Remember, I said don't forget to add your allowances at the point you need them. You need your hemming allowance, you need your stitching allowance, your ease allowance, okay? Ensure you add them. And I just use my rule to connect the points together, okay? So at that point there where the arm meets with the body, I'm going to just make a simple curve there. So while stitching this down, it is not going to drag, all right? You can see the curve I just made right there. So just go ahead and do the same for yours, all right? So I'm going to mark the neckline for the back. Now remember, our design will be in front, okay? So the back has a different neckline. For my back neckline, I went down by 1.5 inch, okay? So that's 1.5 inches for my neck depth. That's the back neck depth. And I'm connecting this with a curve rule, all right? So we have it looking this way. We'll finish all our connections. I will just go ahead and cut out the others, right? Now for your back neckline, you can decide to use 2 inches, okay? 2 inches for the depth. That also works. And like I said, you can decide to also make your dress to be longer, okay? I think when this is longer, it gives you that extra rich auntie vibe. And depending on how you style this, it's going to come out looking perfect and quite pretty, okay? It's going to give you that classy feel. So I've gone ahead to cut out this, okay? I'll take out the piece I want to use as my front so that I can cut out my back neckline right now, okay? So that's just what I want to do. I just want to cut it out. Remember, I said the neckline for the front and the back is different, so you want to cut your neckline separately to avoid mistakes. Now for the front neckline, I'm going to just replicate what I have on my crepe, okay, for the design. So I went in by 3 inches, that is for my neck width, all right? Then I'll still follow the same process I did for the black piece, okay, which is 4.5 inches for the first neck depth. So I just went ahead to mark that down. I'll use my rule to get a square, and then I'm going to cut it out, okay? So for the front, you have to follow exactly what I'm doing, okay? It is not the case where you have a different neckline. If you want to have this design for your neckline, you have to follow this, okay? Apart from the depth I used for the second phase, okay? So for that, you can decide to make yours shorter like I advised earlier if you don't want any part of your cleavage to be exposed. So just go ahead and cut it out. So this is what it looks like. We still have our square on this piece, okay? So I'll place this properly. Now I'm actually placing the back parts of this, okay? I went ahead to make a mark on this so that I'll make no mistakes. And I'm placing the front part of the fabric, that's the black fabric, to the back part of my main gown. That's the main BuBu dress, okay? So that I can go ahead and trim out the excess I have on this. Remember, you have to pick a side. It's either you want the design on the right or you want it on the left. This part totally depends on you. So I'll just go ahead and use that as a template to trace out this other piece so that we have the both front pieces matching perfectly at the points where they need to match, okay? You want to ensure you place this accurately so that you don't have the design on the crepe on the right and then the design on the fabric on the left. I hope you understand that, okay? So we want to give this a little more character. That's the crepe fabric. So I folded it back into two, okay, ensuring that they are equal on both ends. Now on the parts where we have the open end, I'll be going up by 1 inch. I went up by 1 inch at that point and I marked it down. And I used my free hand to make a connection to the other end, okay? So I went from 1 inch to nothing at that point there. That's exactly what I did, okay? I'll go ahead and cut it out. This is to have like a little curve at the edge of this. That's just what I wanted to achieve. And I finished doing that. You can see this is what it looks like, okay? So what I'll do next is to go on. I'm going to fold 1/2 inch round this, okay, apart from the top, fold it by 1/2 inch and iron it down to have a smooth finishing. So I've done that. This is what I have, okay. I used a hemming gum to achieve this so that it is not moving all over the place, okay. You can see mine looks quite smooth. That's because I used the hemming gum. So I would advise you use same for yours so it's not moving about, all right. So I'll bring in back my front piece so we can continue working on this. And I'm going to place it. Remember I said the back part of the material should be facing the front part of the crepe, okay. That's the design because you're going to use the crepe to turn the neckline of this, okay. So I went ahead to place this the same way I said, okay. So the shiny part of the crepe is my front part of it, so I just placed it this way, ensuring that I'm lining perfectly. So what I'll go ahead to do now is to stitch around the neckline area, okay. So just watch my hands perfectly. Just go ahead and stitch around that area. So I've gone ahead to do that and I have this like this. I went ahead to also iron it down. Now I advise you iron so that you have this fitted perfectly. And I'll go ahead and stitch at the edge of this. Ensure it is very close at the edge. I've done that. This is what it looks like. It's coming out quite nicely, okay. This dress actually is quite beautiful, okay. I would advise you use good fabric combination, good color and everything to come out very perfectly. You can see the stitches I made there at the edges of this, okay. They came out quite nicely and they looked quite good at the end of the day, right? So I want to continue working on this. That's to continue working on my dress. Now I've finished doing the neckline design. So I'll bring in my back piece, okay? And I've gone ahead to pipe around this. I just used a black bias to pipe the neckline of the back. There's no much work to do there. And I'm going to place a front facing front. That's a front part of the material to the front part of the back material, okay? And then I ensure that the shoulders are aligning perfectly. After doing that, I'll go ahead and stitch it down, all right? So ensure that they are aligning perfectly. You can go ahead and pin it down. So this is what I have. This is what I have on both sides. I'll turn this to the front so we have a perfect view of how this looks like after I stitch down the shoulders. You can see this is what it looked like. And I went ahead to hem the sleeve ending of this, okay? That's why we needed our allowance. Now for this gown, you can decide to add a pocket or not. But for me, I am a big lover of pockets on dresses, especially on free gowns like this, okay? So if you want to add pockets to yours like I want to do now, so just go ahead and watch what I'm going to do, okay? So I went ahead to turn my fabric to the wrong side of the material, okay? I turned both parts to the wrong side. I folded this back into 4. Okay, so I have like 4 of them on the same end, ensuring that they are all aligning together. Okay, you can see this. I folded it perfectly. And then from the top part, from this part of the shoulder, I'm going to measure my waist point. That's my half length, okay? So for me, my half length is 16 inches. I'll just go ahead and mark 16 inches at this point and extend the line to that end. And from the 16 inches point, that's my half length, I came down by 2 inches, okay? This is where my pocket is going to start from. So wherever your half length is, go down by 2 inches from that end. And from 2 inches, I'm going to mark my pocket opening. I'm going to use 6 inches. So you can use from 5 to 6 inches, okay? Or you can also place your hand around that area to know the space, the allowance you need for it, okay? So this is what I'm going to do. I will just make a notch at this end so that I have them all secured and placed down perfectly. So I've gone ahead to do that, and I went ahead to cut out a piece that measures 6 inches in width like we measured, okay, from that. So that's all we need, 6 inches for the width, and the length I have for this is 9 inches, okay, that's the depth of my pocket. So what I want to do is to pin my pocket to my fabric. So to pin this down, please listen carefully so there are no mistakes. Place your front pocket, that the front part of the piece of the pocket you want to add to the front part of the material. That's the place you're placing this down. It should be matching front facing front. Please ensure you're placing this front facing front so that you make no mistakes. Okay, I'm saying this from a place of experience. Ensure you place your pocket down, the front part of your pocket piece to the front part of your material. You want to ensure the front part is facing the front part. All right. So after doing that, I went ahead to pin it down. Okay. And ensure you're pinning it down at the exact point you made your notch. I've pinned at this end. I'll go ahead and stitch it down by 1/2 inch on both sides of this. So I've gone ahead to do that. This is what we have at the end of the day. This is actually coming in quite nicely. So what I'll do now is to go over and stitch the dress together by using 1 inch from the arm area and then stitch it down. When I get to the pocket area, I'll go inside, stitch to the other end, and then to the end of the dress. All right. So I'm simply I'll repeat this process on this other end. So you see from here, okay, inside, and then stitch to the other end. Okay, I'm using 1 inch to stitch the body, but on the pocket area, I will just use 1/2 inch. All right. So I've gone ahead to do that. This is our dress. We'll finish doing this. It looks quite good. This is the pocket opening. You can see that it looks good. Okay, so add a pocket to yours. And I went ahead to hem the edge of this. So if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next tutorial. Bye.